Hey, what's going on, YouTubers? This is Zen from Zen World, and I hope you're having a great day. So, continuing with the Marvel vs. Capcom Forever series, we are pitting two awesome and ferocious characters against each other. And the first is John Talbain from the Darkstalkers series, and then second is Sabertooth from the Marvel Universe, the 616 universe. So, let's get started talking about their background, powers, and also their personality. And first, we're going to start with John. So, John was born from the British human mother and a heroic werewolf father. So, as we know that he has a human mother and a werewolf father. His mother was murdered by an evil supernatural being sent by Jeddah. Jeddah is one of the all-powerful evil beings in the Darkstalkers series who hated his father shortly after giving birth to him. He had no contract with his father, who wasn't aware that his son was alive. Although he was alone, he had lived a peaceful life as a human and trained with a half-breed like him who helped him to control his supernatural powers. One full moon night, his master was murdered by a group of bandits. The primal beast within him awoke, and he turned into a werewolf and fought them off. The transformation caused him to be shunned by human society, just like, people who are scared of what is different. They'll oftentimes shun them away, of fear of the unknown. After Pyron was defeated, Pyron is another supernatural being in the Darkstalkers universe. Talbain, or John, supernatural form was lifted and regained his human form. Despite this, humanity still feared him. So even though he was able to go back, he was still they still didn't like him. So let's talk about his personality. John's personality is shown to be mostly aggressive and antisocial in most of his dialogue with other characters, but he's apparently has a softer side. In terms of his powers now, John is a very skilled fighter in both hand-to-hand combat as well as ki-based attacks in normal state. So even in his normal state, he's able to he's still an adequate fighter. As a werewolf, all of his powers are far greater. He also has a great sense of smell. Like most canines, he can transform into a werewolf at night. Anytime by willpower alone. So he could transform pretty much at will in terms of the nighttime, and that's about it for his powers and personality. And when it comes to a little snippet of his story, so now let's go into his opponent, and his opponent is Victor Creed, who is Sabertooth. So let's talk about his early life. When Victor Creed's mutation first manifested, and that's upon puberty, he accidentally kicked his mother over a piece of pie. His father confined him to a cellar and would systematically pull out Victor's devil teeth, quote unquote, because he had really sharp teeth. In an attempt to purge the boy of his demons, Victor was chained like an animal in the family cellar for years, until one day he chewed off his own hand in order to break free, subsequently murdering his father. Although he would later claim to have killed his mother as well, he actually spared her and made sure she lived a comfortable life until she was diagnosed with cancer and was confined to a hospital, where she was killed by a member of the Red Right Hand. So traveling to this into the 20th century now, although certain memories of their encounters had been tampered with, it appears that Sabertooth did attack a Blackfoot tribe, Logan, who was living in the early 20th century. And Logan is actually Wolverine, for those of you who don't know. So he did a couple of things throughout his whole life. He went through a couple of wars, the Korean War, as he served in the American military, Avengers 1950. So when we're talking about Avengers 1955, in Madripoor, Nick Fury found Victor and recruited him into his Black Ops team known as the Avengers. Sabertooth had some yet unknown history with fellow recruit Craven, the Hunter in Africa, prompting later to shoot. And me reading over this on the wiki, I didn't know that Craven and him actually teamed up at some point, right? So let's talk about his powers. But before I get into the powers, let's talk about his personality. So his personality type is basically very ferocious, and pretty much he doesn't mind doing the things needed in order to get it done, if that makes sense, right? He'll pretty much do anything. He'll take out anyone in his path, and if it's a mission, it's a mission, and that's about it, right? So now when we're talking about his powers, Sabertooth powers and abilities can range quite a bit. He has regenerative healing factor, which we could assume that John has as well. Contaminant immunity. So Sabertooth's natural healing also affords him virtual immunity to pretty much every single poison that we've seen in the Marvel universe and also in the human universe, which we live in right now, such as diseases and most drugs. Fatigue resistance. So he won't get fatigued after a long duration of fighting. Decelerated aging, as we heard, he's pretty much lived throughout all of the 19th century, and he's well over 100 years old. Superhuman senses, sight, hearing, smell, and taste. He has claws on each of his fingertips and toes, and he has fangs on his teeth, his canine teeth, and he has above normal average intelligence, right? Superhuman strength, peak human speed, superhuman stamina, durability, and enhanced reflexes. We could assume, even though this wasn't said in for John Talbain, that he has very similar abilities in terms of being a canine. So he has all the abilities of a humanoid-based wolf. And for Sabertooth, he has all of the abilities of a humanoid-based Sabertooth himself, but except accelerated with the actual healing factor. So now let's talk about who do I think would win, and then we'll go back to the community's basic who they think would win, right? For me, for the most part, I'm gonna have to go with Sabertooth on this one, and the reason why I'm picking Sabertooth in particular is because he is a character who has a wide range of abilities, but he does not have the weakness of needing to turn into a specific state at nighttime. Now, while John can do this at will during nighttime, I don't think that Sabertooth is going to want to only bring the battle during the nighttime, right? He may want to bring the battle at any time through the day. And while John does have ability and can manifest ki during the daytime in his human state, it's not enough to basically fight off Sabertooth, who has a regenerative healing factor. So John would probably, now if I was to switch it up, right? In terms of nighttime for Sabertooth, nighttime for John, I still would go with Sabertooth in terms of his regenerative healing factor. And another reason why I'm going about this is very similar to the last battle in terms of tactical ability and just ferociousness and willingness to do whatever it takes and needed to survive. Sabertooth won't just use his current mutant abilities. He'll use anything around him, and this is similar for John, but in the sense that for the first thought in Sabertooth's head is not about fighting, but it's about decimation and killing. So now let's switch over into the communities. Who do they think would win? And all of this comes from my IG post in terms of who they would win. And I'm looking at it right now, and it was 25% for John and 75% for Sabertooth. Most of the viewers voted on Sabertooth as the winner. And even though I did state the reasons why, it just was basically about who they think would win. And it was 75%. And I'm in agreement with that, in that Sabertooth would win the battle. Would it be a hard battle? A pretty grueling battle? I think so. But I think it would be too late for John to realize that Sabertooth can go just pretty much savage and brute and just be a brute. Now, at the same time, we can deduce that John can be the same way, but at a certain state, he is that soft spirit that he has inside of himself might get in the way, right? Sabertooth will use pretty much anything in his path and anyone in his path. So he'll pretty much use people as a shield in order to win the fight. So, so far, it seems to me that the Marvel characters are winning these battles so far. So in the comment section below, what other battles in terms of Marvel versus Capcom do you think that I should post next? Because for the most part, these have been random matches that have been put in together in terms of likenesses, characteristics, but they could be totally different. One of the matches that I thought about for next time is actually a Capcom versus Capcom match, and that one goes to Q from Street Fighter series, and also not just Q, Mr. X. So let me know what you think about that.
That was fun!